Hello, everyone.
Your host, Rhonda
I missed my intro there, but that's okay. Welcome to the Indigenous Superstars. I'm have a really awesome guest today, and I'm really excited to interview him. And I know everybody knows him, and I'm just going to go right into his bio so we can have a really good conversation with him, and we'll get to listen to his fantastic music. And so I'm just gonna read my guest bio, and that's the amazing Keith Secola. And Keith Secola is an icon and ambassador of Native music. He is one of the most influential artists in the field today. Rising from the grassroots of North America, he is a songwriter of the people. Critics have dubbed him as the native version of both Neil Young and Bruce Springsteen. Indian Cars, his most popular song, is considered the contemporary Native American anthem, achieving legendary status and earning him a well deserved cult following. It has been the number one requested song on tribal radio since 1992. In 2011, he joined the ranks of Jimi Hendrix, Hank Williams, Crystal Gale, and Richie Valens and was indicted into the Native Music Hall of Fame. Born in 1957 in Cook, Minnesota, Secola is affiliated with the Anishinaabe tribe. He graduated from the Mesabi Community College with a degree in public service in 1979 and completed a BA in American Indian Studies at the University of Minnesota in 1982. He is married and has two children. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome my awesome friend Keith Secola. Yay!
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Rod, from Tempe, Arizona, all the way up to northern Manitoba. Hello, everybody. It's really quite something to be here on the cyber waves.
Yeah, it's so exciting. We were talking earlier, and I just was mentioning how we had to think outside the box when COVID happened and all our shows stopped. So I thought about this show to give our Indigenous musician a platform to bring awareness to everyone about your music and sharing stories about your journey in music. So I'm really glad that you're on the show. There's so many people that were so excited when they found out that I had you as a guest on tonight.
Well, it's my honor to be here, and I follow what you're doing and the people you've had on, and so I really support our native artists, and it's a genre that, even though it's the oldest music in North America, it's the newest genre. Like, people are just discovering us, even ourselves, so it's really awesome to be here.
That's right. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions before we go into your first performance. How did you get involved in music? Like, what inspired you to become a musician?
Well, I think, we always have a singing uncle, it seems like, in all our family trees or something. And everywhere you go, you could always at least learn the chords to me and Bobby McGee on any reserve or reservation in North America. But somebody could sing an Elvis song or a Beatles song. And so I attribute that to my uncle, Frankie Webb from Fort Francis, Minnesota, really pushing me to, or he was a singer too. So he'd have fun with all these people singing music. And then I would see people playing a little guitar, like acoustic. And my mother would always cruise these rummage sales and she'd come home with a guitar, and at first it would be a 5-string guitar, or 6-string, and then it would turn to 5, then 4 and 3. No one knew how to tune a string on the guitars. But I remember playing a guitar when I, like 9, 10 years old, just playing a couple notes, not knowing what a chord was or anything like that. It wasn't until later, after high school, where I got my first guitar. and I really started learning chords. But music was all around. You could hear it everywhere on the radio. You could hear it even in smaller tribal gatherings. Like people would make songs about rice, even or make up songs, or you'd hear folk music at that time. I remember hearing Peter, Paul, and Mary, Puff the Magic Dragon, and now collaborating with Peter Yarrow, the author of that song. And so it's an awesome, awesome flight. But the whole influence of music, I think those were the matriarch of our family, and to all the mothers and all the women out there that really are the keepers of the music. Give it to our sons, give it to our people, and I think that's what happens. And then rum and sail guitars, learning a few strings, but then you get serious. I remember in fourth grade, I learned the trombone, ba 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 ba, this, and in high school I played it all the way to high school, and I got a bass trombone when I was in like 11th grade and 12th grade from the school, and it was an expensive instrument, because mine was a cheap one, and I got a good instrument, and I could really play it by ear. I could play it like it was like a bass note, almost like how a bass guitar is, but only like it's a bom 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 boom. Like the trombone was a similar part in the orchestra to the tuba and baritone, so it was always related to the bass line, and so that really translated into music. When I started to play guitar, I always wanted a guitar. I had a bunch of guitars with not full strings at home, and so I remember saving all summer at my senior year, painting some houses and saving a few $100s and hitchhiking to Hibbing, Minnesota, and buying an electric guitar. It was a Marauder. I still have the guitar. I'll have to bring it out I should have brought it out. I didn't know I was going to talk about it, but I remember hitchhiking home too, 30 miles in the kind of cold weather in northern Minnesota. Hibbing, Minnesota is where Bob Dylan's from. And a guitar and a little Vibrochamp amp. I didn't know the vibro would mean how chilly it was, but it was, I was really proud of it, and it kind of set things off, and you kind of learn how to play music from there, like by listening. And that's how I kind of got started in it, thinking about songs, playing in a high school and grade school band, and in choir too, singing in a choir. So those were influences, and of course our great Anishinaabe influence.
That's awesome. So I read your bio, and can you tell us what all the instruments that you play?
Well, I mean, I think I play guitar well, like all these other instruments, like the flute. I think everybody should play the flute. I feel like I'm maybe a little advanced on the flute, and I know great flute players across North America. I played harmonica for a long time. After I got the palsy from our operation, we could maybe talk about later. I lose the armature, so you couldn't play and bend notes how you used to. Let me see if there's harmonica here. I can't find I think it's in the other room, but mandolin, and I play the piano. I wish I would had a piano growing up. I kind of got one as an adult and just learned to play it by ear. And it's kind of my approach is the approach of a guitar player on the piano, a songwriter, a lot of chords and things like that. But I would love to play that barrel hall style piano, blues style, and things. And the other instruments, you can pick up an instrument pretty fast and kind of apply it, like the banjo. I've written a couple songs on the banjo, but I've played with some great banjo players, and you learn to respect that instrument as well. Like you learn to be a novice on many, and you combine all your efforts into songwriting and producing sound and things like that. And so all these instruments like guitar, mandolin, banjo. I remember going into the studio a few back on my last album, Life is Grand. There was a tambora, and there was some instruments from the India and things like that. And so we used them instruments, and the stringer instruments were easy for me to adapt to because a lot of the style was just kind of like a, kind of doing arpeggio kind of things and repetitive dronal things. And so all these instruments you learn, and of course the flute. I have collected a lot of flutes that I have, and one thing I've done is I've gifted a lot of flutes, more than I have away, to young native singers and guitar players, and I think there's song catchers. I think like the flute. When I go canoeing, I went canoeing last year in northern Minnesota. I put the flute in the water at night, and after in the water, I washed it off, and I put it in a big pine tree, a white pine tree, and let the wind blow through it at night. And then when I played it in the next day, it captured all these spirit songs. And I've hidden flutes in the caves in Arizona, and they come back and they come charged. Or I've washed flutes in northern Manitoba, and so I think they're gifts, they're song catchers, and I've given them to singers on drums, and when I've talked to them a few years later, they'll say that I've gotten a few melodies and things, and so it is really an important instrument, just like the guitar. I feel the guitar is the little brother of the drum, like the little brother of the drum for us, and so we need to play the guitar like that. Songs come like that, and so that's the idea, Rhoda, about all the instruments that I play.
That's awesome. So are you ready to perform your first piece?
Oh yeah, I like to, play a song. It's a double song, a little bit of a flute intro, and it's dedicated to the travelers, our little nephew we love, Mr. Blake Ness, who's on his journey, and all our friends, Donnie from December Wind, people who are ancestors. It's a time that we have to be more understanding and give more love than ever we have in our whole life. So I'm going to play the flute, and I'll put on my glasses, and then I'm going to sit down and try to refocus and play a song, okay?
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It was really beautiful. I can understand why you say they're song catchers. You could just feel that the timbre and the quality of the note of it sounds so like soothing.
Yeah, I
So
think, and you know, I've seen stories. You know, I've heard stories, read historical things where even Coronado, they could hear the flutes in the distance. You know, when they were looking for the lost cities of gold of Cibola in the southwest. And I've heard stories of um, the people who came through the Cherokee territory were greeted by a flute playing of 1,000 people playing the same melody. And so I think that this is a relevant instrument, you know, a song, and it's a humbling instrument too, you know, like, and you know, it's ironic. I am going to have a commercial flute album out soon, but to me, it's always been a song catcher, you know, and the name of the album is going to be called Portals. You know, I think portals are the things that we come through to understand. It's at the center of this interspecies communication, you know, right where this star is, the entrance to it, the portal into this life, you know, through the Pleiades, the belt of the Pleiades, or the spirit journey. And so the portals of interspecies communications, I think, is pitch. You know, I think you can hear pitch. You can tell when a bird is angry or when it's cooing or when it's calm. Same thing as when you speak to a child. There's a thing called mother ease, and it's saying, "How you doing, baby? Are you okay?" You know, like you talk really with a tone, and people understand these things. And so I think that this instrument has this thing in it, and the ability of it is as if you're a musician, you know what key they're in, so you know how to play the keys that the instruments you're playing, and and to write the songs. So what I did on Portals, I pitched things like Lake Superior, Gitche Gumi, and I pitched it, and it was an F sharp minor. The waves were slapping in that key, and so I put an F sharp minor flute, and I put it like a bass beat and some beats to it. And it's really transcendental, really meditative. It'll take you to this, and you'll hear the shores. And I put a few flute mics, one on the upper part of the waves, and I put one underneath the water for all the mermans and all the underwater panther creatures and everybody below. And so I think all these things are these portals of understanding. And I think you know, the flute is there.
that's beautiful. I can't wait to hear that recording. I'm sure gonna buy it.
Yeah, it'll be out.
Just
It'll be out. I
but
know
just
I have. It'll be out on a label as well, so it'll be much more accessible than I have been in the past.
That's awesome. Yeah, when you're describing that, I could just see the water and the I could
Well,
feel
you're
the
a singer,
water.
so you understand pitch. You know, you could listen to the
Yeah,
crickets. You could listen to the crickets at night, and you can play in their key. You know, you can listen to the birds and figure out, well, what key is that singing in? In fact, one time the band Interstate was over here visiting me in Tempe, Arizona. They're a reggae band, native reggae band from Albuquerque, and we were all sitting in my backyard under by my grapefruit tree, and I got a couple of mockingbirds out there. And mockingbirds in the Southwest, they can mimic, they can sing for 9 hours straight almost, not the same melody, but they can mimic things. And I was playing some blues riffs in this mockingbird I call Beniche. Um, he always riffs with me. You know, I'm playing a blues song, and the bird will start, "Ba-da, ba-da, da-da," you know, he'll start singing like it. And then I was with a saxophone player, and he was really chirping in. And I told the sax player, Orlando, I said, you know, listen to what that bird's playing. Hey, man, cop some of his riffs, you know. And he did. He listened to what he was playing, and he played it. Da-da-da, he played it back. You know, this portal of interspecies communication and pitch is at the center of it.
That is so awesome. I love that. Because how I compose my melody, I base it on the landscape of where I'm from in the area in northern Manitoba, and then I graph it on a music scale, and that's where my melodies come from. But now I'm going to listen to the birds and to the animals, and that's where my other melodies will come from
Well,
now.
I think, like when they talk about wine, they talk about this thing called tenor. Like the taste of wine is everything that's in that area that it comes from. It's a taste of the ground. It's a taste of the air. It's a taste of the grass. Everything. And so music is like that. Music has tenor. We make Sonoran music for tenor music. And just up where you're from too. Pitch the birds, listen to what they're singing. What pitch are they in? What are they saying? Like things like that. I think incorporate them. Be the song catchers.
Yeah, yeah, I'm going to incorporate that into my composing. So I want to ask you, or I want to mention that we have a lot in common. Not only with like I just found out when you were telling us this evening, um, you were in band and you took trombone. I was in band too. I was in the high school band, and I took clarinet and the bass clarinet. And I was a bad musician when I was a teenager because I never practiced, but I got A+ in my course. And then I also sing with a choir, and there's a really awesome, world renowned choir an hour north of the Paw in a town called Flin Flon, and we've traveled to perform in the Carnegie Hall and Met in New York City, and we were supposed to go again in April, but because of COVID, everything got got postponed. But the other thing we also have in common, you mentioned some of it earlier, is that we both had acoustic neuroma brain tumor. Can
Yeah.
you? Yeah,
Well, mine was, like I guess sometimes like it's like history, like American Indian history. To understand it, you almost got to talk backwards or teach it backwards from today backwards. And a couple years back, I went to a ear doctor, and my acoustic neuroma was on my right side, this side, and he took a tuning fork and he banged it and he put it to my ear, and I said, "That's in the key of F," and I was right. And he says, "No one told me that before, like was right in the pitch." And I said, "I think I can hear pitches better than I could 20 years ago, 10 years ago when that operation first happened." And he says, "You're right. What your mind does is rewire. You rewire so you can hear pitch." And I think that's what's happening in a renaissance in my life, is where you can hear, like maybe you have one ear, but you learn to hear with your heart, the strongest thing that you have. And you learn to listen with that as well. And so you start backwards from there. At first it was devastating. I remember the hardest thing was the first night before the operation, and I'll go backwards a little bit. You mentioned my two children, Marguerite and Keith. They were really little, and I remember being in the hospital and them coming in to seeing me that night, and my son crawling on the bed that I was getting, on the hospital bed, and just having to say goodbye, maybe the last time, is hard. So you really get humbleized, and that's a new word, I guess. um, but you go through that, and just a month before, I didn't have much time. I went to I was having trouble hearing, and eventually I went to a hearing doctor, and instead of prescribing a hearing aid, he said, "Would you go see an ear and throat specialist?" And I did. And the same thing, a tuning fork, at the beginning of my journey, I couldn't hear it on this ear, and he said, well, would you mind getting an MRI? And they found a tumor, it was large. And they said about the size of a golf ball. So it was pretty large, and it grew from my ear canal into my brain cavity, and it was butting up against my brainstem. So it was real serious. They said, we got to get it out. I went to Dr. Spitzler. He was the head of the neurosurgeon in Barrow's Neurological Institute, world-renowned surgeon. He had me smile, and in one smile, he says, Keith, we're going to get that out of you. And he gave me a prescription. He goes, you're going to give blood to yourself for 2 weeks in a row, and you're going to prepare yourself. And the third week, we'll come and get it. And so I got time to talk to my Madej people or our medicine people back home, and, got prepared in that way, spiritually and mentally. And the support system that your family can give you is tremendous. And so all these things were important, coming into it, because it was an intense surgery. And I've used other tribes too to help me recover. When I had my palsy, mostly I had the Hopi medicine. And when I was in a hospital, an Apache medicine woman helped me, and a Ute medicine man, and people like that would come and pray for you, plus all the prayers in the Christian world and all the prayers in the spiritual world, and they all mattered. And so you learn really fast, and the operation was intense. So the first day I remember waking up and thinking it wasn't too bad, but then saying they got to go back another day. And I was kind of surprised. And that was the hard day. And the hardest thing, I think, was waking up, and I was like in the bowels of hell. I could hear a baby crying, like the recovery room. And that made me hurt more than anything. I think I could hear the suffering of somebody worse off than I, and kind of knew I was going to come through. The second or third day, Dr. Spitzer came to my I was going to say hotel room, or my room in Barrow's Neurological Institute, and he seen me up, and I was up in the bathroom kind of cleaning, and he knew I was going to get better, and so I started by walking, even just walking 5 feet, and then I'd walk down to the end of the hall, and I lost the equilibrium. You lose your equilibrium in that operation. So you lose your balance too, and I remember, the almost the prejudice of it. When you got palsy, you look like kids will call you a monster or whatever, like you feel conscious of it too. And, like you can't drink in here. You're buzzed up, like you wouldn't even be, like.
I totally understand what you're saying, and mine was on the right side too, and then the doctors told me it was the size of a golf ball too, and it was right by the brainstem, and my story is the same as yours. Seems like we're like we have so much in common, Keith. Holy smokes!
Yeah, it is. It's good. Maybe 2 years. We got 2 years together, and at least we could hear from the right or left. And it's funny because when I go out with Pat, my wife, she'll sit on my bat ear, so like I can ask her what people will say or something like that. I think that's the hardest thing, though, not knowing right where sound comes from. Because you really need 2 ears to zoom in to where the specific sound is. You can figure it out if you're in a while. Especially I've been liking the birds. That's been my latest hobby down here. Watching the migrations and things, and listening to different ones and studying them and things, and so, yeah, that's we have a lot in common. And a few years back, I was playing music in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and this guy came up to my merchandise booth after we got done playing. We were selling our stuff. We had like vinyl and CDs and T-shirts, and this guy came up to me and he goes, "You remember me?" And I go, "Dr. Daspin." They had to have 2 surgeons on me, and that was after 20 years of not seeing him. And he asked how I was doing, and he says, come on in and get an MRI. Even if you don't got insurance, I'll pay for it. Like, and
Awesome.
he had me come in, and I had insurance, so he had me come in, and afterwards he says, Keith, you're going to die because the tumor was so large they can't touch a brainstem. Of course, this, so they left a little residual there, and he said, without food source, that'll die, and that's what it did. And then he said that'll and so that's a long story, and I usually don't tell people, but you are a special woman, and your crusade is pretty special.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you're a
yeah,
matriarch, like you asked, and so I would share that with you and all the listeners.
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Because yes, it is a very intense surgery. My surgery was 11.5 hours, and yeah, I had palsy too, and I'm still not 100% on my face. I don't really have a smile. That's why I don't smile like
Yeah.
everybody. But we get used to that, and that was one of the concern I had starting this show too. But I thought, nope, I'm gonna promote the artists and give them a platform, and just work through it with
Well, how,
when
no, I mean, I've turned the tables on you a little bit. How do you adapt to it? You're an opera singer. How was that? How?
I think it's the same. Like my pitch became perfect too. When I hear the song or the key of the song, I can get it like right away, and it's just I don't know. I think it's like a gift from Creator that he's spared me my voice, the Creator, and thank God that he did, or Creator did. And then I'm also humbled as well, and I do things, always setting goals for myself, and I don't take life for granted, for sure, because we almost lost our lives. It's a like you said, it's a really intense surgery, but mine grew back 5 years later, and it grew back bigger. So I told myself I didn't want to go through that surgery again, because it's very painful, and I did some research online, and I found a procedure called gamma knife. So I went and I did some lobbying for funding, and then I went and did my second brain surgery in San Diego, La Jolla, San Diego. So that's my journey. So that's why I'm so always a go getter, setting new goals, and wanting to travel the world and meet lots of musicians, and yeah, and I'm going to the recording studio tomorrow. I'm gonna go record two cover songs. So I'm really excited, and so that's how I cope. Like I just keep doing. And you said something earlier, but when we were talking earlier about musicians, can you
Oh,
share that?
yeah, I remember saying, in the music business, there's two things: either you talk about it or you do it, and
Yeah,
that's all there is. You're either talking about it or you're doing it. And so you're doing it. One thing I've done, like sometimes I have trouble. We call these cans, like we call these cans. So like I have trouble sometimes wearing them a long time, or even like getting a good mix. And so when I
right.
record my vocals a lot, I like to record like without headphones, like I just get the pitch and then I'll sing it. If we make it through
Right.
December, something like that, you learn
I,
little ways to adapt.
I don't use headphones either. It's too hard to gauge.
Yeah, isn't it? It was weird, but I think you could relate to what I just said, and so I find it pretty easy to do. A lot of singers too, like some studios have done that where you don't have to wear cans. You can just maybe without getting feedback or without getting, the unimic, so it ain't going to come in or bleed through. And it really is a good thing. I think it's helpful for people like us and a lot of musicians too.
Great. So are you ready to sing your second piece
Yeah. Yeah,
for me?
This song is called "Say Your Name," and it's an honor to be part of an audiobook. And shout out to my sister up there, Christy Jourdain Fenton, and Margaret, and for a book called Fatty Legs about the boarding schools. And up in Canada, the residential schools, and how I got this song. Songs come to you, and I was in Winnipeg a few years back, and I'd get up early to walk, and I'd see all this crowd of people over there by the forks, and I asked somebody what's going on, and they said, oh, they're having Stephen Harper at that time was having reconciliation testimonies, and I knew that it would be sad about the boarding schools and the residential schools, but I went in there and listened to some of it, and that night I got a song right away. Came to me at the forks at Confluence, the center of North America. I've seen a lot of things up there. I've seen healing though. The Cree, some of our Cree medicine people were working hard. And Anishinaabe medicine people, in respect to them. Say your name, show your face, leave no trace of the shame. Tears come falling, 500 years, prayers of our children. Late at night, down the hall, monster scream, roam and crawl. Don't tell no one, you'll get bad dreams. Prayers of our children. Say their name, show their faces, leave no traces of the shame. Tears start falling, 500 years, prayers of our children. Prayers of our children, prayers of our children, prayers of our children, take these tears.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
There's a nice video of it. We have a nice video of it, and it's attached to this song, story called Fatty Legs, and it's out in Canada. It's very accessible.
Awesome. I'll have to research that one. Oh, someone said beautiful guitar playing. I just want to acknowledge all the people that have come on and logged in this evening. Aaron Brown, Georgette, Audie, Liz from Minnesota.
All right.
Let me see. Fabian Mousseau, Belinda Moracity, Franny Klein, Fabian Mousseau.
Franny's fantastic singer. There's some great singers on here. Oh, I know your guest last week.
Yeah, some really awesome musicians tuning in as well. Raven Reed and Aaron Brown, Gator Bolio. There's some really awesome musicians, and yeah, I gotta get Franny on the show as well. Thanks for tuning in, Franny. So I want to get on to the next question. Is Can you tell us about your show that you do on the radio, the Americana?
Yeah, it's called Native Americana, and
Okay,
it's yeah, it's kind of I've been doing it a while. Same thing as, it was a reaction to the canceled gigs and things. And I was in northern Minnesota in the beginning of March, and I had a bunch of shows doing, and we were working on the radio version of Native Americana. We had about 12 episodes we were working to get ready to distribute, and they're done and they're ready to be distributed by KBFT, up the radio station, the native radio station in northern Minnesota, where I'm from. um, but we're working on the radio podcast, and I've collected stories throughout the years, like for instance, in when Floyd in the early part, I think it was around 2010 or 2008, or 15. I've known Floyd Westerman a long time, but one of his last times we went into the studio, and we recorded a bunch of bootleg songs, like Zapatista, and some songs by Chris Christopherson. And I have some of these bootleg recordings of Floyd and I in the studio from back then. Charlie Hill would come over my house a lot, and I'd record him in the bedroom, like in my room, like we're here, like on things, a few recordings like that. And people I've done in the field, I've taken like my laptop and with a microphone, and went in the field and did field recordings for the last more 10 years, more like with field recordings, but recordings before that, like at studios and influences. And I call a little segment of my Native Americana Coffee with Keith. I call it Coffee with Keith. And it's a chance for me and musicians to interact, or me to influence them, or songwriting. And one of your guests that you had on last week or earlier this week, Cindy Paul, she played a magnificent song called Trickster. I'd love to send it to you if you could put it on the playlist. And we recorded it in our room when we were at the NAMMYs, in the Native American Music Awards. And I recorded other musicians. I was there and recorded Williams and Ree that time they were out there, and the late Joseph Firecrow, because I think it's part of like your mission too, preserving our story, ethnomusicology kind of things, getting in the story, letting musicians define the genre, letting musicians weave the tapestry. I could say, well, this is what Native Americana is, but I could ask you, what's your definition? And you could, give me your understanding of it. And so during the beginning of this episodes, I started what was called a Zoomcast, kind of a similar thing, of podcast, a Native Americana on steroids. We did 60 interviews, in about 2 months' time, and we're unrolling them. We got about 30 of them unrolled. You can catch them at native-americana.com. Native-Americana. We have them all listed up there. We're just starting a website like you. We're kind of creating interest. And so this will be a great way to self-promote, each other. And similar stories. I think the more the merrier. It's not about competition or this show or that show. It's like, let's get the stories out there. Let's get access to our people. Because like even in the time that we started, we don't have access to some of these people.
Mm-hmm. That's so true.
And so it's called Native Americana, and I've collected the field recordings, and I'm still collecting recordings, like still collecting with people, which I hope to, you will do a reciprocal interview, and we can feature you some.
I would love to be interviewed by you. It will be awesome. And I'm looking forward to that. So I have a request. You're the second musician that I have. I'm going to request a song from you, and I'm sure everyone tuning in is wanting to hear the song as well. Can you play Indian Cars for us?
Okay, let me get a tuning here
Okay.
and make sure because I'm using a capo, and I got my six string here tuned down to D, tranny, or Rhonda, it's tuned down to D. I kind of like it. The Beatles would always sing in E flat, and so I've been singing in D. As you get older, things change. But what was ironic, we found an old recording that we made in 1980, 79 at my mom's house in northern Minnesota, and I'm playing with my nieces and nephews. And my voice sounds the same. I think just living in rock and roll, living in that rock and roll thing. And because that was about the time I was writing this song too, in that early 80s, writing it about the richness of being poor. And I remember, when I got to record the song, I changed the phonetic and introduced the spelling of NDN. You can see it all over in Indian country now. I called the song that Indian Cars, and kind of way back then, and kind of spoofing on, I was saying, like, we're not wild or anything like that, like always using humor to get at a higher metaphysical understanding of places, using humor. And Floyd would always tell me, he goes, yeah, Keith, instead of kicking him on the shins like with protest song, you like to get the Pied Piper and have them follow you, like sing along with you. And there, each of us got our own technique. And so this song appeals metaphysically to a lot of people. People will say, did you write that song about my mother's car or my brother's car, my uncle's car, or your car? And sometimes you'll see a bunch of Indian cars parked outside of the casino, but nowadays you might see like a bunch of new Indian cars. But Floyd Westerman would say, Sitting Bull didn't ride no old plug. He'd have a nice horse, So here it is, Indian cars, okay? I call this finger picking style too. Play it. I've been riding in my Indian car, the pound of the wheel drumming in my brain. My dash is dusty and my plates are expired. Please, Mr. Officer, let me explain. I got to make it to native superstars. I'll be singing 49 down by the Indigenous sign, looking for sugar, riding in my Indian car. Hookah, everybody at home, join me.
Hey, woohoo. Thank you for that request. Everyone online is just like so happy. So where can we find your music online, Keith?
Secola.com, and of course on the Facebook. And I know, like, I'm on a little label out in New York called Don Giovanti, and they got everything listed in Spotify and all the musical platforms. You can order, the new album and things, and you can even order a vinyl version. Let me show you the vinyl.
Okay. Oh wow, that looks
Yeah, here.
that's
Yeah,
good.
and it's like a 25-year anniversary release, and then I was able to release some other songs, and I'll have the flute, and my website has all the things, and CD Baby has all the platforms, and so I'm more accessible, and we can get things to people.
Right on. That's awesome. So, do you have any parting words?
The parting words is just, keep on trying, let's give a little bit slack to each other, including ourselves, like, let's be a little bit more understanding, um, give more of understanding and less of judgment, and continue your good health, like walk every morning, appropriate the work of our ancestors. Like I've read that their ancestors would walk up to 5-6 miles a day, and so I'm trying to do that, and to appropriate that, and we can reverse genetics, and we have this opportunity to do things to improve ourselves as musicians, as songwriters. It's a little bit hard. I know, like, a lot of guitar players, our calluses got soft, and so mine are just getting better again. I'm starting to play a little bit more. So keep playing, and don't isolate. Reach out to people. Give love to people and understanding. Miigwech.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. So, I just want to say, stay safe, stay healthy, and our next guest on Indigenous Superstars is the beautiful Ella Parker.
Thank you very much from the desert of Arizona.
Awesome. Thank you for your wonderful spirit and your talent. Like I said, have a good night.
All right, well, keep in touch, and thanks everyone for out there listening, and we'll grow our audiences like a herd of buffalo. We start and we grow and we grow and we grow, like that.
Sure will. We sure will. Yeah.
All right.
Support each other. Okay, like I said.
All right, Miigwech. What do? We hang up now? Yeah, or you hang up. See you later.